Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey, right here on the Dice Tower. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you. Today we're going to be taking a look at this little fellow right here, Dracula versus Van Helsing. This is put out by Mandoo Games and 25th Century Games here in the States. It is basically a two-player game, and it feels like a trick-taking game where you can manipulate what's going to be in your hand and what's possibly in your opponent's hand. Let's get down to the table and take a look, shall we? Now, in Dracula versus Van Helsing, one player is going to play Dracula and the other person is going to play Van Helsing. Dracula's whole purpose in the game is to get one section of the board. Notice that they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One section of the board needs to be completely turned over. All 4 townspeople tokens need to have their vampire side showing, and if that's the case at any point in time, Dracula will have won. In the meantime, Van Helsing is trying to score as many hit points on Dracula as he possibly can, and if he can make Dracula lose all 12 of his hit points, then he will have won. The last way that the game can end is if we go through all 6 of these rounds, and if at the end of the game one of those other 2 triggers hasn't happened, then Dracula will win. Now, I mentioned in my introduction that this is basically kind of feels like a trick-taking game, and this over here, this part of the board, determines what suits have priority. So this suit over here, and this is, by the way, determined randomly at the beginning of the game by shuffling these tokens and randomly putting them out here in a random order. So in this particular random setup, purple is the highest suit in the game, followed by yellow, which is then followed by blue, and the weakest suit in this particular game currently is red. Each of the different suits have cards in them that are numbered 1 through 8, 8 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, and so a purple 1 will beat a yellow 8, and so forth and so on. Now, on your turn, you're going to be taking the cards that are left over after you've dealt out 5 cards to each person, and you're going to take a card, and basically you're going to look at it, and you're going to determine, do I want to just discard it, or do I want to swap it with one of the cards that are already in my hand? Either way, I'm going to be discarding a card and doing a special action. So, this one right here, I want to switch with this one, and that's going to make me discard this red 1, which is the lowest card in the deck right now. This special ability, however, means that I have to reveal one of the cards in my hand. So I'm going to go ahead and reveal this blue 8 right here, which is kind of the top of the bottom of the deck. And that's the end of my turn. Now on Van Helsing's turn, they're going to draw a card and they're going to take this red 6. And this red 6 is actually pretty cool because they're going to be able to use that special ability, which means they swap one of the cards in their hand with one of the cards in my hand. So they're just going to go ahead and discard this one like this. Oh, these should be turned over, sorry. And that allows them to swap one of the cards in their hand with one of the cards in mine. Well, they see that this red one right here, even though it's a high number, is the lowest in the deck, which is lower than this. So they're going to go ahead and swap that with my card just like so. Now, you'll notice that whenever you swap cards, whether you're swapping them within your own hand or with your opponent's hand, they have to stay in the orientation of the swapped card. So this one that they swapped with me has to be revealed, and the one that's there that came out of my hand is closed off. I have to remember that that's a blue 8. And so on my next turn, I'm going to go ahead and take this card, and maybe I want to use this one, maybe I don't. But it's a pretty high card, so I'm going to go ahead. I know he has an 8 right here, so I'm going to swap this card with this one, which means that I'm now beating his blue 8 with my yellow 5. Now, if I had discarded this one, this symbol means I would have taken another turn. So maybe it would have been better for me to take another turn, but right now I think this will be better, and you're about to see why. I'm going to go ahead and discard the red 7, which allows me to swap the trump card, or rather the trump suit, with one of the suits that are over here. So I'm looking at what's going on here, and I think I want to swap purple with yellow. So now the highest suit is yellow and the second highest is purple, which puts me in a pretty good position based upon what my hand looks like. Some of the other special abilities that are in the deck, so basically this, if you ever discard an 8 and there are 6 cards already in the discard pile, you can automatically end the round, which might be pretty cool. If you discard a 2, it's going to allow you to reveal the top card of the deck, which basically means that you're going to be able to see what card your opponent takes at the beginning of their round, so that you have a little bit more information about their hand. Some cards, like you saw earlier, swap cards between 2 hands. Other cards will allow you to, let's see, take another turn, swap cards within your hand. If you discard a 3, your opponent has to reveal one of their cards. So those are the different kinds of abilities that you're going to be able to do during the course of a round. And so here we're at the end of Dracula's turn, and you can see that there are 6 cards already in the discard pile. At that point, you now have another option on your turn, which is calling an end to the round. Now, if you call the end of the round, your opponent will get one final turn before the end of the round actually happens. So do keep that in mind. For the purpose of this review, we're going to go ahead and say that Van Helsing is feeling like he's sitting pretty well off, and he's going to call an end to the round. So I'm going to go ahead and do one final turn here, and sure, we're going to go ahead and swap that with this. Now I get another turn, so I'm going to be able to do this, and we're going to go ahead and do that, which might not be the best because now I have to swap. So I'm going to go ahead and swap this one with this one, and again, they stay in the orientations that they are, and now that's the end of the turn. And now we're going to reveal the cards in order, going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and see who wins. So I have a yellow 7 over here, and Van Helsing has a blue 8. So Dracula won, so it gets to turn over. He gets to turn over one of the townspeople's to their vampire side. Then we go to the second card, and that's revealed. Yellow 4 beats a purple, so he's able to take one of these and turn them over. A purple 4, unfortunately, is beat by a yellow 2 in this particular game, so I have to lose one of my hit points just like that. A yellow 5, I believe, beats, it does beat a yellow 1, but just barely, so Dracula is able to turn one of his over here, and then my purple 7 here is beat by Van Helsing's yellow 3, so I have to lose another hit point to Van Helsing. And then we'll move the marker over to the next one. All of these cards are taken together with those, shuffled together. New cards are dealt out, a new draw deck is gone, and you play through another round. When one of the aforementioned game end triggers happens, that will end the game. If the marker gets all the way over to the 6th position and there is no winner after the 6th round, Dracula will win by default, and that's how you play Dracula versus Van Helsing. So that's that for Dracula versus Van Helsing. I have to say that I am kind of in the vein, more often than not, of liking two-player games right now, and this one definitely did not disappoint. I really did enjoy this game. First of all, I don't really necessarily like the theme. It's not that. I'm not prone to enjoy Dracula games. However, I do like the theme for competitive games or one versus all games. I've really enjoyed that theme in the past. It's got a real visceral nature to it. It's a great struggle of good versus evil. So I get it. I like it, but I don't love it. All right. So if that makes any sense to you. I do like trick-taking games. That's another positive to the game. There seems to be a little bit of a rash of two-player or cooperative trick-taking games. The genre of trick-taking games seems to be being played with a lot, and new developments are coming out. So while this isn't technically, I guess you could say, a trick-taking game, it does borrow some elements of a trick-taking game, and it definitely feels like it to an extent. It's just that you have that portion of the game where you're able to manipulate the cards that are in your hand, which I guess is kind of mirrored in other trick-taking games where you're able to maybe discard a number of cards from your hand before you actually start the hand. So I get it, and that's why I think I'm safe saying it really kind of feels like a trick-taking game. But others might say that it's more of an area control game that's kind of card-driven. And I get that as well, but it isn't really, because Van Helsing doesn't really control any of the areas, but Dracula is trying to turn over tokens. I don't know. I don't know that anybody's going to call this a area control game, but it's a thought that I had, so I wanted to throw it out there. It isn't really. But all in all, I did really enjoy the game. I thought it was a great way that two people could sit, for example, maybe over dinner. This could easily be played. It doesn't have a very large footprint. It doesn't have a really small one either, but it's just small enough to where you could fit it off to the side of the table. And I say this because my wife and I actually did that at Dice Tower West. We actually played this off to the side while we were eating our meal in the sports bar, and we had a great time playing it, and it was a very interesting experience. So with all that being said, let's get to my pros and cons. My first pro of the game is the component quality. The component quality on this one is really pretty high for the kind of game that it is and the size of game that it is. Publishers I've found over the years on smaller games sometimes seem to cut corners, and I don't feel like that happened on this one. I really like the fact that you're not actually using cards. These are cardboard tokens more than they are cards. Now, they're not super durable. They're not super thick or anything like that, but they are much thicker than a regular card. And I like that because I think they're going to be a lot more durable over time than cards would have been. But they are very similar to cards, but they are also much thicker than cards. And I thought that was a really cool thing. The card holders that come in the game are really neat. You can barely see it, but they have a little insignia right here, or the title of the game that's right there. And these are nice, chonky pieces of wood. They're not chintzy plastic or anything like that. And I really, really liked these card holder components. The tokens are meh. They're just what you would expect from tokens, but they're really not manipulated that much during the course of the game, except for one person, and it's really just flipping them over. Other than that, they just kind of sit there, so it's neither here nor there for me. The health tokens for Dracula are also regular cardboard cutout type stuff, and then you have the little wooden ship, you have the little wooden ship for the round marker, which is also pretty cool as well. But everything is a very compact package, and the components are very well done, so I had to mention it here. Another pro for the game is that the box size is exactly what it should be for its contents. And I really like it when publishers do that and they don't put small game components into a large box. So basically you see this here. This is where all of the cards go, and there's just enough room for this little bag to hold the ship, the hit point tokens, and all of the circular townspeople discs and the trump discs go right here. All of these cards kind of fit in here by two stacks, just like this. And then there's just enough room for all of the tokens and the little Ziploc bag. And then these things go right in here just like that. Everything is a nice, snug fit. And I think that's a great thing to do. Publishers, pay attention to this. Stop oversizing your boxes. It's bad. This kind of stuff is good. My third pro with the game is how simple the actions were. All you're doing on your turn is you're drawing a card, and you're either going to discard it immediately, or you're going to swap it with one of the cards that are in your hand and then discard that and then carry out a special ability. Now, one of the things that I did find here was that it was a little difficult early on to remember what all of the icons meant for the different actions, but after a couple of rounds, it was pretty clear. So that's another pro that goes along with this, but we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. The actions were simple. Turns were very fast. There wasn't usually a whole lot of thinking that you had to do. You pretty much knew that you either needed to improve your hand or find a way to kind of deflate your opponent's hand. One of the two. You're just basically trying to gain the upper edge in this back and forth battle here. So it was a very simple game to learn how to play. It was also a very simple game to teach, and we had a great time with it, so it's a positive. My fourth pro of the game is going to be a pro because I know that a lot of people like it. For me, not necessarily. I wasn't really drawn to the artwork very much, but I did like the graphic design. I did like the kind of the minimalist design of the board that made the townspeople tokens pop just a little bit more. I did like the artistic design and the graphic design that's here. The art style just isn't really what I enjoyed that much, but because it was functional, it was thematic, and the graphic design did a really good job as far as using those different icons, and that's really where we're pulling over from that last pro. The icons were intuitive after a few rounds. The beginning, it was a little bit like, okay, well, what does this do again? And only a couple of them were a little bit confusing, but generally speaking, they were well done. They were easy to remember after a few rounds, and it's a pro for me. I did enjoy, not my favorite, but I did enjoy the thematic, artistic, and graphic design here. Now, with all of that being said, there are a couple of cons for me and from my experiences with the game. The luck of the draw is very prevalent in this one. But with that having been said, I will say that that's not too much different than most trick-taking games. But it seemed like it was a little bit heavier on this one. Because of you have to discard cards in order to use that special ability. And of course, the higher number cards have the stronger powers on them. Sevens are the ones that you have to discard in order to manipulate the strength of the suits. And that can weigh very heavily upon how well you do in the game. Especially if you have a low hand and you get one of those sevens, you're like, man, I really want to keep this so that I can upgrade my hand and feel like I have a fighting chance. Or you're searching for that seven that is the lowest card in the deck so that you can manipulate. It's that kind of thing that really feels like you're really trying to struggle to do a specific thing if you find yourself in that kind of a situation. Otherwise, you're relying heavily, and I mean heavily, upon the luck of the draw. And for me, that's a con because it can feel like you don't have as much control as you want to, or you feel like you should during the course of the game. So that's why I'm mentioning luck of the draw here as a con. There's other things that might rub me a little bit the wrong way, but I don't think they're worthy of being called a con, so to speak. I really did enjoy this game a lot, and I thought it was a great way to pass the time. I would imagine it's probably going to stay in my collection for a while. So let's go ahead and get to my rating. My rating for Dracula vs. Van Helsing is going to be a 7 out of 10. Now, I know I only mentioned one con, but I did mention some of the other things in my pros because I do think it was a good graphic design. I do think they did well with the artwork and all of that kind of stuff. It just wasn't for me. And that's part of what's pulling this down a little bit. I've talked to other people that enjoy the game a lot, and I've talked to other people that are kind of neither here nor there on it. I did enjoy it, and as I said just a few seconds ago, this is probably going to stay in my collection for some time. I don't know exactly how long because, as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of trick-taking type of games out there, and there are even a lot of two-player trick-taking games that are out there right now. So I don't know how well this is going to stand up to how much I enjoy those other games that are kind of in the same niche of our hobby. So For now, it's going to stay in there. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a great game. Try before you buy, though. So that's about that. Thanks for joining me. I certainly appreciate it. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.